Hello, I'm Danny. I'm going to host the next half an hour conversation with wonderful Max Mahler. I'm very happy to be welcoming Max to MPTS. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm not going to go through Max's fantastic portfolio because we're going to talk about that in detail in the next 30 minutes, and hopefully you know it already. But in short, Max is a producer, filmmaker, 2026 Oscar nominee for short film, Forbes under 30 honoree, the list goes on. And we're going to spend the next 30 minutes deep diving into Max's pretty astonishing career so far, talking about the complexities of the industry, this crazy industry, and where he's going next. I want to talk firstly, we were speaking as we were getting ready about age, because it is kind of awkward to be like, hey Max, you're 30, you've achieved so much, how can we learn from you? I just want to call that out. Anyone at any age, young or old, can have amazing success in this industry.
Me too. I think on that note, that list in particular, and I'm very proud to be on it and excited to be on other lists to come, hopefully. It's all leverage, these things, these opportunities to platform yourself and your image, whatever route you can take to have your name included in a space where people who are movers and shakers are included also. Like, apply for it, go for it, but in no way does it mean that you have to do something by a certain age to make things happen. If you see an opportunity to platform yourself, take it.
Okay, that's our caveats to start.
That's that.
And now, having said that, Max, by age 30, you have had an astonishing trajectory. Can you take us a little bit behind the scenes into what's the real story behind where you've come from?
Real story. So the real story of where we currently sit is that I've come back from LA a few months ago. My rent is the same. I'm still trying to get jobs. Like, life is very much not changed, but there's new opportunity to leverage, and that word will come up all the time through this conversation. What you've done before to get to where you want to go next. Where the journey's gone from to get to that point where I can sit in rooms and say these cool things is I always knew I wanted to get into film. I imagine everyone sitting here today has a similar interest. Whether you're currently working in the space or hoping to get into it, you may be looking to tell your own stories as well at some point, and I always wanted to tell my own stories. I come from a household where I was kind of pushed to go to university as a safety net, and I came to an agreement with my parents that I would apply for an English and media degree because it sounded a little more safe than film and TV. And what I've learned in the long run is that it doesn't matter what degree you got, just hustle. And I did writing within the English and media course, and no one wanted to make my scripts. I had like 30-page scripts that I written that I was very proud of. And a DOP met with me and said, right, what's my rate and what's the budget for the project? And I was like, what now? Like, I've only ever hugged, handshake, made films with friends. So I quickly learned that to make a film, you need to raise capital and a team that, are catered for and looked after. I couldn't do that with my own projects, so I became a producer on other people's short films. My selling point was, I do not want your money. If you've raised £10,000 of life savings, and I'm not going to kid you in saying that films just cannot be made for small amounts these days at the level that you're trying to compete with filmmakers within, the festival circuit at. You hear cool stories, but I'm just going to break that dream and say you really have to find fun somewhere. I took whatever I could from people who had saved life savings and made their films for them. And what happened was I then earned badges to my producer's uniform, and another team was like, yo, I saw you produce that and it looked good. We've got £20,000 mixed from life savings, Kickstarter, friends of friends. Can you produce for us? Boom, did that. That one got a BAFTA qualifying festival. Norwich, awesome. I quickly learned how to get into this festival game, and by the 10th short film, there's an Oscar nomination. Now, that's not to say that, do 10 short films and you'll get nominated for an Oscar. That's to say you will not get nominated for an Oscar unless you are ready to do 10 short films or more, keep pushing. So that's the long story short of that journey. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows in, just make other people's films and you'll get to that point. I've done 10 years of on-set freelance work in visual effects, asset management, producers assisting alongside that. So if there's one thing that I want to say today in speaking is that I'm not special. I'm someone that's not giving up. And so I want to meet people today who are also prepared to not give up and also making their own things outside of the day job.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Amazing answer. And I'm curious, within that trajectory of you writing your own stuff, leaving those scripts on the table, moving into producing, I want to come back to those scripts, by the way, at some point. At what point did you change your mindset from I'm an aspiring filmmaker to this is working?
So I am a filmmaker.
Was there a tipping point? Yeah.
I think if you're making films, you are a filmmaker. If you're writing scripts, you are a writer. You have to identify with what you do. The real tipping point for me, though, was press. I think the first time I saw myself in a Variety article, I felt validated to a level where industry peers and individuals that I'd worked for or looked up to were texting me saying, you were just in Forbes, or you were just in Variety. Like, this is what I read to learn news of my industry. And I was like, wow, well then I'm really part of this world. But that feeling also came from traveling to local film festivals within London and outside, within the UK, and going to meet filmmakers at events, and they ask you what you do, and we've all got badges today. Mine says producer, so we all self-identify to some level, and I think that it's inevitable that as you pursue making your own films, you just have to take on that hat. So as early on as it was, and then at some point with press, I felt validated.
You mentioned press there, you've also mentioned networking. Were there any specific early decisions that you feel really mattered to you?
Yes. So what I preach about when I meet with anyone one-on-one is please get IMDb Pro if you're looking to push yourself as an above-the-line filmmaker, writing, directing, producing. You add a photo of yourself, you add a bio, but then you make the bio written by anonymous, so it does not look like you wrote the bio. And people will Google you, and they'll see you on IMDb, and they'll decide there and then whether they want to collaborate with you or accept your email. So getting on IMDb Pro was a big thing for me. I know it can be expensive, in the same way that, we budget for going to the cinema, allocate some to IMDb. And then also LinkedIn. I am a big LinkedIn warrior. I spend minutes of my day, if not hours of my day, on my phone. The app is best because you can just tap, 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 connect, search for film, locate it to London, and bang out some ads, and you'll build your network every day. I've got 27,000 LinkedIn connections. I'm not an influencer. I just tapped 27,000 times. So anyone else can do that too. I see one of my LinkedIn contacts smiling over there. Anywho. So that's those two things, LinkedIn, IMDb. And then there's a BAFTA scheme called BAFTA. It was called BAFTA Crew, and I fortunately got onto it with my VFX background. It's currently called BAFTA Connect. I implore all of you who are mid-level filmmakers to apply to get in. And I haven't actually got in beyond, this is a bit of a secret I shouldn't be saying out loud, but whatever, I'm here.
We're all friends.
I'm not part of BAFTA Connect, but I did get into BAFTA Crew 5 years ago. The WhatsApp never changed. So I get opportunities all the time for this WhatsApp group. But find your way is what I'm saying. Open those doors, and if you're not part of it, find someone who is, and just see what opportunities are popping up.
And there's BAFTA Connect, there's the RTS groups, NFTS, there's Edinburgh TV Festival,
the trend here is that there are groups, Facebook page, Production Rabble. There are Facebook pages that you can join. Just maximize your exposure to opportunities and meet people, go for coffees, jump on projects. You might do a short film you hate, you might do a short film you love. But the difference between someone who's hopping on projects and meeting different people versus someone who is head down in their room writing that magnum opus script that will change their life is that the form is going to meet the people that will open the doors. The other is betting a 50-50 chance of it will work, it won't.
Thank you. That's tons of advice there. You're going to get a lot of LinkedIn connections if you're not friends with all these people already.
I'm
in
very
your many
open to
thousands. I want to talk a little bit about your work. So across your portfolio, your work is often described as, I would say, emotionally resonant is the through line. How do you find those projects, and what attracts you to those stories? Maybe would you agree actually with that as the through line? Yeah,
I mean, the difference between filmmakers on the other side of the thing that unites them, which is hustle and drive, is taste. So you have filmmakers who specialize in some genres, mediums, duration of project, I've met filmmakers who solely want to make shorts because they just love compact storytelling. And I think that my taste comes from having studied short films at university and wanting to really like hone an emotional ABC storyline within the frame of 15 minutes. So what you find is that there are only certain ways to tell that story in that time. Kind of like awards shorts. Everyone go away and check out like the Oscar-winning films of the last 10 years. There are very similar beats across all of them, and I found that like I resonated with the form of those, and it just so happened to be projects that I was attracted to at Scriptage.
And as you've journeyed through sourcing or being attracted to or attracting those projects yourself, I'm curious, have there been any risks that you've taken kind of creatively, or any unconventional routes to sourcing?
Yeah, so when it comes to money and finding money for your independent projects, it's very easy to come across people that will sell you a dream, or people with large pockets who want a credit, and they'll make you sign paperwork, and you think, oh cool, that's an easy 10k in the bag. Be very careful of what you're signing, be very careful of who you're dealing with, because people with a lot of money to give to a filmmaker for nothing often have the money to be litigious and be quite ruthless in how they approach collaboration and working with you. So I think that a mistake I'd made early on is being very open to accept financing from any direction and not read the small print, and be very careful of who I was, in terms of business, getting into bed with. You've got to be very careful with the kinds of collaborators you choose on that level, because financially a lot of filmmakers don't have funds to go to court with. So do not make the mistake early on. Do not fix it in post.
I know you're smiling as you say that, but I can almost see tears in your eyes of like the stress of reliving something.
Big burns.
Yeah.
But this is how you learn, right? You learn by doing. I think my film school was just getting down into scripts, short films, and collaborating. And I'm fortunate that majority of my films I'm extremely proud of, and any others that aren't in that list are films that I've learned a lot from. So it'll take as long as it needs to, but yeah.
You've talked a lot about collaboration there, and moving from legalities of collaboration to talent.
Yeah.
You have partnered with some incredible talent on and off screen. I'll leave you to do the full list. How has that happened? And particularly, we've spoken about age. How early on in your career do you begin to build relationships with people who a lot of people in this room would really give their arm to?
Yeah, it was incredibly daunting in the beginning of collaborating with names, like Ben Whishaw, like Stephen Fry, because you think you can never reach out to them or have them read scripts that you're a part of. I think the biggest way to get into those circles is collaboration. No one that I've worked with has ever come from a direct connection. No one is my parents' friend, or no one is someone that I'd bumped into at university or out on the street. A lot of the talent that I work with happen to be direct connections with the directors that I work with, or work with agents of talent I'd worked with on previous projects. And one of my earliest short films I did had 2 stars from the theatre world, and after that short film, which was their first on-screen credit, they went on to achieve screen credits with agents with reputable talent. And from that point you can reach out to the agents who you have a relationship with from an artist who is more easily approachable, and see on your roster you have someone I'd love to work with. You know me and trust me from my previous work with your client. Can I please get my script in front of them? So it's never you write one thing and then boom, it goes to your favorite actor. I've heard stories and it can be, but if anyone's asking for recommendation, definitely get some projects under your belt. If not, tactically work with talent on your favorite artists, agents roster, and then you've opened a door for yourself. So it's the long game. Yeah.
What I love about talking to you about this is you really underscore the power of network building, but also the power of tenacity in network building, in not just thinking, I don't know that person, how could I ever possibly get my script or this script in front of them?
Yeah.
But who do I know? How do I get to them? It sounds like there's almost like a kind of a very thought through strategy to how you might solicit connection with people. Do you feel that tenacity inside you? Do you identify with that?
Yeah, I feel like before every project is started, it has to have intention behind it. And I can only speak on behalf of the short film community because that's where I currently sit within. But when you make a short film, there's like 3 key reasons why you would do it. One is proof of concept, so you can make something wider beyond it. Another is proof of ability, to show people what you're capable of. And another is to basically exercise working within those teams and building your collaborators. I think that all the films that I've done have kind of ticked all 3. Maybe less proof of concept, because I've never expanded beyond that. But in answer to your question, when you have a script in front of you, you just really do have to build that unit list in a way that you would build a house. You know, like how do you want to furnish the kitchen, aka your cinematographer's department? How do you want to furnish, you know, your different rooms, your different departments? And the way that you furnish them and build that house dictates how that house is, you know, ultimately built and received. So yeah, I'm quite direct and intentful with who I go to make my projects with.
And what about walking away? Have you ever had to step out of a collaboration that wasn't working as you'd intended?
Personally, as a producer, no. And this may change as I embark in what I originally wanted to do, which was write, and then next direct, is when you produce, and I'm speaking for myself here, like, I know that once I'm in, I'm in. I'll do everything to make the story happen. And there have been times where I have been working early stages with the director and the creative vision doesn't align, and they decide to walk away when it feels right for them. And that's totally valid from a creative point of view. But like I said about being intentful, I would only really get into something if I knew that I had my heart in it. Yeah.
And moving through the industry as you have done, and we've talked about the relative pace of that, can be a bit of a double-edged sword in terms of the pressure and expectations that come on you when you start getting a lot of that press and receiving glowing reviews and having a fantastic network and working with A-list talent. How do you deal with the kind of pressure and expectations that come from that quite fast success?
It's tough. Like I've touched on before, like, there's no money that comes with all of this. It's leverage for your next thing. It always is your next thing. And people come up to you and say, "Oh my God, how was America? You just came back from the Oscars, and what cool accolades! I saw you in the news." And yeah, there's a pressure to respond with, "Yeah, things are great. I've got the next thing lined up, and you know, the money's just come in for that, and the actor, huge actors just signed on for that." There's expectation to continue that momentum. I do believe that it's important to keep an incline with your work, as in going to the gym, lifting heavier weights, continually progressing. But yeah, I can't lie, there is a pressure. You just have to trust in yourself that, like with the gym metaphor, you will just attract talent who see what you're doing and want to be part of that journey. There's always going to be doubt. You just got to get the projects out.
Yeah, what I really respect is the vulnerability of saying, like, hey, it's not all glamorous, and there is so much of that in the industry of, like, people not willing or not wanting to say, hey, yeah, I've just been to the US and also I am trying to figure out how to pay my rent this month.
Yeah,
that's the reality of a lot of people.
That is the reality. And another thing is, I worked in visual effects production for a long time until I didn't after the strikes, and the pipeline had completely frozen. And at the time I thought it was, like, very difficult, and it was difficult. Maybe difficult's not the word I'm looking for, but a silver lining opened up of time to ideate projects and discuss projects with collaborators. So sometimes it's very easy to feel safe in what you're currently doing. Do try and, like, trust your gut that if you stepped out, something great could happen in a tough time. Yeah.
Okay, so I love how you're kind of taking us behind the scenes of, like, the reality of what this last 10 years has looked like for you.
Yeah.
If you were to zoom out, what would people not know? What's the biggest lesson that you've learned behind the scenes that we may not be aware of?
Like I said, paperwork is everything, because what happens is the closer you get to success, people's minds change about, team optics. In a team setting, people may believe that, one did more than another. It's very, very important that you establish your direction and what you want to do. So that's one thing that I would say on a grand level, what I've learned from these 10 years about protection of ideas and collaboration. And then another is, don't rush it. Like, back to what we were saying at the start of the conversation about 30 under 30, for example. I do recall wanting to be at university. You see Matt Damon, Ben Affleck picking up their Oscars at 25 for writing. Like, oh, cool, I'm 23. If I get a feature done this year, I could beat them. And it's like, nah, none of that means anything. I think there's a tenacity and hunger that comes from youth that's not about youth, it's about naivety.
Yeah.
And in being burned and in having your time in the industry and making your own things and learning what works and what doesn't, and when to be grateful for when it all works out, you have a mindset for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, knowing that, right, if I did all that in these years when I was a no one and people went for coffees with me and said, nah, no chance, what's going to happen these next 10 years when I've got this badge of honor on my lapel and doors open to work with actors that I used to watch in the cinema on family trips on Sundays, you know? So just like, don't think that your current position now in your independent filmmaking journey dictates what the next 10 years will look like, because that next film could be the one that opens you up to collaboration.
I'm curious, what is your personal process of like your own career planning? Do you check in with yourself every year and think, like, this is what I want to achieve? You mentioned
I'm in the middle of it.
Looking ahead.
Yeah, so I made a company, it's called a Marlowe's Production, not because I'm so like up myself, but because when I was 8, I took my mum's camcorder and filmed a piece of paper that said a Marlowe's Production. And I found that in the last 2 years, back when I was like making a limited company as a vehicle to not get sued if someone, you know, breaks an arm on my set.
Yep.
So named the company after my childhood fake company, and quickly learned in making these films that this isn't a Marlowe's production, this is a group effort of 40 plus or so people. So transparently, the next thing that I want to do is build a new company with everything I've learned from my shorts and embark on the features, with the shorts having been my film school, but not giving up the shorts as a medium of expression. I love short film, and I think that, like, especially now, you see articles, check out Variety and Deadline for announcements of recent. Big stars are making their own shorts because studios aren't taking risks on them, and so they have networks and funds of their own and making great shorts that the likes of Disney are picking up. And I mean, this isn't a name drop, but the fact that 2 of my films are now available on Disney and one's on Channel 4, in a time where 5 years ago short filmmakers were not saying those sentences. Don't see short film as a means to grow into feature. See it as a viable medium of expression that can open doors just as well as feature film can. Yeah.
And just going back to that, envisioning your future, it's lovely to hear about the next steps that you're taking in your own career.
Yeah.
If you were going to give advice to someone, maybe at the start of their career now, or wanting to re-envision a new stage of their career, what does that dreaming process look like? Like, do you get down pen and paper and start listing out the things you want to achieve? Like, how does that work for you?
I mean, I don't want to sound so power of now and saying, you know, like, pen to paper, go to Pinterest, cut out dream boards and whatnot. But I do think 2 things that really help me is comparison pieces, less so pieces, more so people. Find your heroes, effectively, people that you watch the films of and look up to, and break down their journeys and figure out who did they work with and where did they show their films that allowed them to get to where they are now. And then another thing is, what is your dream? Like, we all have one, right? Like, let's say most standard dream for any filmmaker, because we will watch it every year, is to win an Oscar. Let's put that as number 1. How do you do that? Well, what's your means to winning? Are you in best cinematography, best editing, best directing? Right, if you want to get that category, how do you make a film good enough to qualify for that? How do you qualify for that? What film festivals do you have to be friends with to qualify for that? How do you get to those festivals? What films do that festival take? Does that festival take? How do I make that kind of film? Who has made that kind of film before? Where am I right now? Boom. And then you do everything you just plan, but the other way around. So, reverse engineer it, is what I would say.
And is that the way that you have got to where you are now?
Every day I'm reverse engineering.
Really?
The ideas change, the goalposts change. But if I want something, I figure out what do I have to do to get to where I have to get to then be able to do what I want to do.
Yeah, because it is normal, right, that in retrospect, you would get nominated for the Oscar and be like, oh, well, I reverse engineered this whole thing. You know, I started this 3 years ago.
Luck takes a big part in it, but for full context, the nomination comes 2 years after a shortlisting for the award for another short. And so, yes, luck plays a huge part in it, but if you do not have strategy and you haven't built a means of getting yourself onto a platform where it's possible, then your chances are significantly reduced.
Yeah.
I think that, like, a big wake up, grab you all by the shoulders, shaking kind of moment is like, wake up to the fact that time is passing and it's not going to happen to you, it's going to happen because of you. So, like, do something, you know? Which is basically my big takeaway.
Thank you. I like the physicality of the shaking of all of us.
I'm passionate.
I feel shook. Okay, for folks in the room who are filmmakers, what is one thing that you would recommend people focus on now to build momentum in their own careers? We've spoken a lot around network connectivity, LinkedIn, IMDb, paperwork. Is there anything else that you would throw in?
Yeah, I think the one big word that I haven't said today is bio. I think bio is Bible. Like, when I'm seeking collaborators, when people recommend me people, even when I'm trying to pitch myself to other people, go for job interviews even. Not just the 2 lines at the top of a CV, but your IMDb bio is what sells you. And there are so many great ways to decorate yourself with accomplishments that may not even be on the level of, a Venice premiering short, but rather like, local festivals or competitions for scripts and things that are tangible. Everyone's done something in their hustle to be at a level where they want to, branch out into, high-end short film. I think that a lot of people don't value the power of a bio, and that if you sell yourself well and you're not afraid to decorate yourself, a lot will happen to you. People will read up and be impressed and want to meet. So I think a lot of people don't realize the power of selling themselves. And if you don't want to do it yourself, if you're shy to make yourself look cool online, ask ChatGPT. Say, here's everything I've done. I'm too shy. I don't want to get involved in this. Write me a big bio. And all the best on the journey.
That's the best suggested use of ChatGPT I've heard all day. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask a couple of final questions. One spicy one that has come through from a conversation I was having with someone as we were waiting. Do you think there's a lack of originality in filmmaking at the moment? Are people afraid to take risks?
There's a lack of originality in the films that we go to see. But the counter side to that is there's a hunger for originality that we can make with independent films and short films. So now there are really exciting companies and creators of films that I never thought I'd speak to before who are messaging me and talking to me and accepting meetings saying, well, what's next? What have you got? Because what you've done is really cool. What comes next? Well, we're keen to be involved in. And I'm like, whoa, well, you just made films that I'm a huge fan of, so that's kind of sick. I think that the lack of originality, because it's safe to do what is accepted and it's safe to do what sells, allows independent film to thrive in taking risks. Obsession, this new film that Blumhouse is putting out, $1 million to make. The filmmakers don't know how they put that together. They did it independently. It sold for $15 million to Blumhouse. That's a sick story, and someone's going to do that next, and someone's going to do that after. And there are loads of stories like that. So I think that in this time where originality is scary to do for the people with money, I think the people without the money but the vision should go and make films, take the risks, and then get the big payouts. Yeah.
Louder at the back. Louder for the people at the back.
Make your films.
Okay.
Make your films.
Final question.
Yeah.
You've spoken a little bit about where you're headed, how you're thinking about the development of the company that has come, the origin story. I'd love to hear that about your childhood filmmaking. What is next on your, I'm going to call it the manifestation board, in what's coming up for you? What should we be watching
talking
out
totally
for?
personally, so no one cares. But if the last whatever minutes I was speaking for are the first 2 lines of my Wikipedia page one day, this next chapter, I want to revisit the why I came into this industry. Just total personal, talking personally here. I wanted to write, I wanted to tell stories. And these 10 years of producing for other people has opened up an opportunity for me to have my voice heard. So, those of you sitting here today may be at that same position, you may be beyond that position, or you may be on your journey in shorts where you're hoping to have your voice heard and make your dream projects. I'm very fortunately in a position where my scripts are being read. So I would like to continue the producing. I look at someone like Jordan Peele as someone that I'd love to mirror the career of, someone who, he did his comedy writing and acting, and tangented into producing and writing and directing. And I'd like to produce my stories whilst also producing others. So I think that that's my personal next step, is to, again, and lastly, leverage this whole movement to allow me to do what I want to do. Another anecdote, a little takeaway is you've got to do what you need to do to then do what you want to do. And a lot of filmmakers, especially directors in early independent stages, that I've met can be extremely entitled and think, right, this producer has to see my vision. If they don't, another producer will. And it's like, well, no. Unless you have a vision that is solid, that a producer can see from your past work and wants to move on with you from, you just have to do what you need to do. And that might mean doing projects that aren't yours, written in your voice, to then earn the trust to do that. So I think that all the 10 years have been a culmination to allow me to do that next.
And you mentioned at the top of the session those scripts you had on the table. Are you going to go back to those?
Scripts on the table, yeah. So currently finessing one of them and another. So what's funny is that a lot of writing tends to be editing. So it's just finessing projects already written that I've been too shy to kind of like put out there. And now I'm at a place where I'm confident to do so.
Amazing. Max Mahler, you're a legend. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you all for joining.